On this episode of Electric City's Roundtable Discussions, we'll be speaking with Joy Zavada. Joy is a creative who captivates the abstract and brings it to life through vibrant expressions. Her favorite mediums to work with are acrylic, clay, and oil. Welcome to another episode of Electric City Television's Roundtable Discussions. I'm your host, Travis Prince, and today our guest is Joy Zavada. Joy, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Travis. Thank you so much for having me here today.
We're happy to have you here. First off, tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, Travis, this is a fun little fact about who I am. My name Joy actually is a name that I chose for myself.
Wow.
Yeah, so some people know that from my hometown in Peckville. Other people do not. So the story behind why I chose the name Joy for myself is a few years back, I was going through a really rough situation in life. And thankfully, my friends, my sisters, they bought me a trip out to Texas. And I just got out of really tough circumstances. And I remember, getting off the plane in San Antonio, and it was a butterfly migration season. Wow. So there's thousands and thousands of white butterflies everywhere. And I just remember, it was a memoir for what I just went through. So I just got out of an abusive relationship at the time. So I just went through that struggle. But at that time, it just felt like this, just amazing epiphany of wow, I'm free, this is my transformation. So joy as a word, it means to rise above tribulation. It's not bound by its circumstance. So yeah, that's a fun little fact about me.
Well, that's really interesting. So what's your real name?
My real name is actually Lauren. Lauren, yeah. So a little fun fact again about name stuff. My last name is Zavada. Traditionally, that's how we say it. And that means an obstacle or troublesome person in Czechoslovakian. So that's kind of interesting to be, I'm sure people were like, oh, Zavada. I don't know if that was oh, yours. My middle name is Lee. Lee stands for a refuge, a flowery meadow, or it also means a lion. So then Lauren comes from the Greek root word laurel, which is what they crowned the Olympians with, right?
Yeah. Wow.
So it was a temporary victory over the obstacle of my last name. So when I chose Joy, it's an consistent victory over the circumstance. That it'll always stay in joy.
That's pretty interesting. I've thought about changing my name before. I was going to change my name to True, and then I would be True Prince.
Oh my gosh.
But I decided not to.
Oh my God, I love that though. That's so cool.
So, all right. So you went to school in Valley View.
Yes, I did.
Did you go to college anywhere?
So I went to college for only a semester and a few weeks. Before I went to college specifically, I was kind of hesitant about the fact of it, just because the way that I learn, I'm very tactile, and I like to teach myself a lot of things. So in my mind, I'm well, if I go to school, I had to go out and get a job. I'd rather just focus on what I love to do, and exactly. It's a harder route to take, but I'm really happy I'm on that journey right now as we speak. Yeah.
That's good. Well, Bill Gates dropped out of college.
Yeah.
He's one of the most talented people we know. So with your art, have you always been an artist, or is this something that came along later in life?
So when I was insanely young, from whenever I could walk, honestly, I always had an interest in doing art. I mean, the work that I did then was probably finger paint, but when I really started getting back into being consistent as an artist, it was 2017, I would say. A good friend of mine, I have a lot of friends in the art community, as you know, and as you're a part of. My friend was asking me if I would like to do a show with her. The Globe store, how they have the holiday market.
Yes.
And I was a little hesitant at first. I was oh, I don't really have a lot of artwork to display, or I don't know how to do this. So I had a month and a half to prepare, and I got 16 pieces of work done. I got Turning Wither done, which we'll showcase soon. I got a website up, I got my EIN, just like got finalized as a business. And that was kind of like the catalyst for me to be like, okay, I'm gonna do this thing. I'm actually gonna like show people who I am through my artwork.
Wow, and you arranged all of that just in a few months?
Yeah, it was hectic, and plus I was working 2 jobs at the time, so I don't know how I did it, but I swung it, and I'm really happy I did.
That's some extreme dedication right there. So you had a love for art as a child, kind of grew away from it, and a friend brought you back into it to be creative again.
Yes.
Are there any influences that really help you guide yourself as an artist, or?
Yes, God's creation. It's everywhere, and it's like you can look at the bark on a tree, and it's just so intricate. Like it's so detail oriented, and I mean even just light, the way that light comes in. I have flat cornea, so I have a chromatic aberration when I see things, so I don't just see, you know, like green here, I also see the red and fuchsia outside of it. So it's, for some reason, light just comes into my eye, a little different than most people, at least that I think. I don't really know. I don't see through other people's eyes, so that's another big influence. It's just like I'm always noticing the way that light's reflected off of things, and like seeing the way that energy moves.
And so you have a wider range of color that you can perceive than the average person. I've heard about that before with people who have that cornea effect in their eyes. That's pretty amazing.
Thank you.
And so you started back in art in 2017. So where do you see yourself now, like from when you first started creating art and the things that you're creating now? How has your growth process worked out?
Well, I would say that I'm actually taking a lot more time into the meaning of what my work is. When I did that specific series at that time, it was just more so like creating. It wasn't like a strategy behind it of like, okay, this is what I feel. How can I actually make this into a piece of artwork? How can I construct this? So I just see myself getting more strategic when it comes to planning with my work, and getting out of my comfort zone with learning new materials and expanding my reach.
So I was in that same phase too, where in the beginning I just want to get these emotions out and in a visual way and make something beautiful, not actually having a developed concept for it. So now you're in a concept development phase, is what you're saying?
Yes, I am.
That's pretty good. So, where do you see yourself going with your art in the future?
I mean, I really hope that my art could shape the nation and shape people's lives. And I mean, I hope to do mirror work, you know, like all over the place, and just, I want my work to be something that it's true for everyone, that they look at it and it resonates, and it almost breaks things off of people when they look at it. Like, I want to see people have a free life and like live out of who they are truly. And I want my artwork to, you know, represent that in a very real way, that when people look at it, they're so stirred that they want to create something. They want to express who they are. They feel shameless enough to be like, okay, let's do this thing. I don't really know how that's going to look like in the future because I'm not there yet. But I feel it inside of me, and I'm like, oh, like I just, you know, like I'm excited to see what the future holds with it.
Well, I think that's the main principle of art, is to inspire others. You want to portray your ideas and a concept in a visual form that the viewer can actually absorb the emotions that you put into it, but at the same time inspire others to be creative, to produce their own works. So I understand exactly where you're coming from. We as artists put a piece of ourselves into our artwork for the world to see, and it makes us vulnerable, but at the same time it opens up so many avenues for conversations and different things like that. So when you got back into art, like hardcore, and trying to develop your techniques and styles, what made you choose the mediums that you use?
That's a really great question. So I chose acrylic, right? And it's just because it was what I had. Like a few months prior to that, I mean, I would still paint a little bit here and there. It wasn't, I wouldn't spend a lot of time doing it by any means. But I had a lot of acrylic paint. I had a lot of inspiration. There was two people that did have a lot of influence in my work, and I think you asked that question. Mitch Gubel and Sally Mustang, they do a lot of abstract pieces of work, and I just really loved what they stood for as a couple and what they did. So yeah, when I saw that I could do work like that with acrylic paint, all I have to do is adhere it to different mediums, I was like, okay, let's do this thing. Like, yeah, like I could do it, So I just bought a bunch of canvas. I remember it was before Christmas, so AC Moore has like their sale, yeah, on their canvases. So it was like a pack of 20 canvas, 16 by 24 for like $20. I'm like, of course, and it's like I have a half off too, so of course I'm gonna do it, So that was it made it a lot easier for me to get into it because I had the resources that I needed, and it wasn't an arm and a leg,
Exactly. Yeah, supplies are the thing that we must need to produce art, and they can be pricey sometimes.
It's true.
So, starting with acrylics, have you tried any other mediums?
Yes, actually, you inspired me to get into oil. So I have one of my oil pieces, the only one that I've ever done, honestly. When it comes to acrylic, it dries really fast. So if I'm doing a piece, I'm like, it takes a lot of blending. You can see like the strokes sometimes, and I'd rather keep that for the abstract pieces. Yes, yeah. So separate the two mediums.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Since I predominantly work in oils, but the acrylic artists always say, well, acrylics are better because they dry faster and you can produce more work. But you essentially get a different finished project because the mediums are so different from each other. So that's pretty cool that you actually dabble in more than one medium. Let's jump into some of your art and see if we can analyze and break down some of this stuff. So this piece right here that we have on the easel now, is there a title for it?
Yes, so this piece is called The Inevitable Kiss.
The Inevitable Kiss.
Yes. So when you look at this piece, what do you see when you look at it?
I see the male and female, and the contrast between the two of them, but at the same time they're slowly merging into one another as well. So it looks, you can see the affection with the touch of the hand that's caressing her face, and they're both have really strong profiles. It looks like a relationship dynamic to a point, but at the same time, his background is stark and flat in contrast with her background, which is very colorful and fluent. So it seems like they're merging and mixing into one almost.
Wow, that's really cool analysis. Thank you. That's really cool. So the feeling that when I got this piece of work, I had a vision, and I just imagined the spirit of death coming in over someone, right? So a lot of my work, I like to tie it to spirituality because we're spiritual beings. So she embodies the essence of youth and life. Right? So she's golden, her skin is perfect, like she's emitting so much beautiful color and light, and that's like how she was created. And that's death looking down upon her to steal her life. But her essence is so strong that she's overcoming the grip of that death, but inevitably she'll have to kiss him.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty deep.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah. So this piece is actually three-dimensional in a sense. What did you use to accomplish this effect right here?
So this is actually clay on canvas, which is really funny because you use clay with canvas because it doesn't stick together. But like if you're doing pottery and stuff, but I had to use molding paste to get the effect for it to stick on. It weighs like a good 25, 30 pounds, I would say.
It's a heavy piece.
Yeah. I'm really thankful it's been holding up well too, because I'm like, wow, this thing's heavy, I'm happy it's not falling off of it.
So this is clay and acrylic on canvas. It's very dynamic.
Thank you.
And it's beautiful, especially with your explanation, the inevitable kiss that all of us will have to come to grips with one day, and give a big kiss to death, and face that final moment.
That's true.
But while we're alive, we're golden and we're perfect in our essence. It's very compelling. Let's check out some more of your work.
Okay, awesome.
So, Joy, we have another one of your pieces here. Can you break down this piece a little bit for us?
Yeah, so this was actually quite experimental for me. Usually when it comes to adhering glue to my acrylic paint, this was a different reaction for me because of the type of adhesive I used. I used a specific kind of epoxy. So when I added it in, I wasn't expecting it to, cluster up the way that it did. But because it did that specifically, it added this extra dimension of texture, and it also allowed in certain areas for it to sink in. So there's areas where it's sunken in, there's like a middle ground, and then where it's really built up.
Yeah, there's, like you said, it's almost 3 levels to it. The indentions, the level, and the raised portions of it. I really admire artists who take that step to experiment. I've been painting for a while, and I normally just work with oils, and I see other artists who are not intimidated or afraid to try different techniques, different mediums, and just see what the results is from experimentation. This piece is amazing. Once again, the flow and the motion in it is what really draws me to it, and it's really, really attractive. I'm a blue person. I love blue. Subconsciously, the last few pieces I did all have a very similar blue hue to it, and this right here is very reminiscent of the mood that I've been in lately.
Wow.
A lovely piece, a lovely piece. What's the title of this again?
The name of it is Arctic.
Arctic. It does have that little Arctic chill to it.
The tundras, Yeah.
All right, let's check out another one of your pieces.
Okay, perfect.
So we have another one of your pieces here, and as I can see, you're not afraid to work on a large scale. This is a pretty big canvas. It took me a long time before I was had enough courage to actually delve into a piece this big. So walk us through this process on this one right here again.
So this piece right here is called Lucid Dream. This was actually the first big scale piece I've ever done. So it was like a new thing for me. So before I did this piece, I imagined a woman underwater, and she was just so embraced by the water. And I wanted to capture her essence in this piece, and you could see the movement of her because I didn't know how I'd be able to put her realistically in the piece. So as I started pouring it and going along with it, I was like, man, I don't want to mess up what I'm getting here, because sometimes I don't have the skill set, so to say, to put her body in there. It would be insanely experimental for me to figure out the proportions and stuff like that. So I was like, okay, let's just get this abstract. So that's why I added these streams of color, just to capture and captivate her essence throughout it.
Wow, this is another really dynamic piece. I love the way the colors flow and mix into each other and merge and meld together. How did you accomplish the way that these colors flow like that? Did you pour it, or did you hang the canvas and let it slide, or?
Yes, so I poured it. I'm a little woman, so pouring this piece and moving it around, it was pretty fun. I was covered in paint, but it does go with gravity, so I'd have to move it, whatever which way, and then I'd do different layers on top of it. So you could see this was a certain layer. The white, it looks kind of like foam, that was a layer. This, the streams are the top finishing layer. It does not have a finish on it, but that's just the adhesive that I use. It kind of gives a nice little gloss to it.
Well, initially, that's the main part that jumped out to me was this white section, and before you said it was a woman in water, I already saw like, it looks like sea foam a little bit, or bubbles of water, which is amazing how you're just able to do that just by pouring the paint. Did you use any other medium other than just paint? Is this all paint?
Well, there's glue inside of it with the paint. Oh, wow. So that's how I made it fluid, is because it has a medium that it could allow movement in and actually captivate the color of what it is. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll put rubbing alcohol in it, or silicone, because it's hydrophobic and it creates cells throughout the piece. So that's why in that section up there, there's a space in between. It wouldn't have that effect if there wasn't something that wasn't hydrophobic inside.
Wow,
Yeah.
I'm learning a lot from you right now. So I'm going to take all these little tidbits of information and try to incorporate some of this into my own art.
That'd be amazing. I'd love to see that.
See, I'm so stuck in my own patterns right now, and I feel like I really do need to branch out and try different stuff. And seeing artists like you and your artwork is always a influential thing for me, to inspire me to break outside of that box and outside of that mold, and just experiment and have fun with a piece. Once again, the blues. I'm just so enthralled by these blues. It's magnificent, and the way you poured it, it really makes the viewer eye wander around the entire piece and to follow that motion of fluidity.
Wow, thank you so much.
This is really impressive. Let's see some more of your stuff.
Okay, awesome.
Okay, so we have another one of your pieces here. Let's start out with the title of this.
So the name of this piece is called Turning Wither.
Turning Wither.
So when you look at this, what do you feel when you think of a bonsai tree?
When I think about bonsai, I think about time and precision and patience. Yeah. You have to grow with the tree itself. You can't rush it, and it's a very delicate process to actually trim a bonsai. So I when I look at it, I see a lot of patience.
That's awesome. So when I took this photo, like this, that was the
source material?
Yes, for the piece. And I felt so much, I've always felt connected to trees in general. I think we all do in a way, you know, and the bonsai specifically. And it's like, throughout a bonsai's life, it's manipulated by hands. And it has to grow out of that place that it's been manipulated. Sometimes people put the coils on it, you know, to make it grow this way and then this way. And overall, it's a really big metaphor for the way that life shapes us. And, you know, turning wither, in the end, we all turn wither, and we all, like, pass away. Again, the theme with life and death. But I used some of these colors specifically in the piece. Like I wanted to show the audience like how I perceive nature to be. For example, pink, to me, when I see pink, is very healing. When I see orange, it's transition. And when I see yellow, it's vibrancy and just like a clarity. So like I wanted that to break through on the piece because, you know, we all deserve the space to heal throughout life. Even though circumstances may be intense, you're still resilient, and you know, like patience is a huge part of the process. And in the end, it still stands so strong and resilient and full of life.
Oh, I can definitely see that in here. And that was the first thing that I noticed. Well, the very first thing that I noticed actually is, once again, the textures that you incorporate to your pieces and to raise the surface of it. But then at the same time, like you say, it's the background would appear to be white, but you look closer and you can see the pinks and the yellows coming through and shining through that starkness of the almost a blank background. Once again, your composition is really intricate and delicate, from the textures in the background to the the way you created your leaves, to the immense details that you put into the trunk of the tree itself. This piece is really beautiful, and I feel a connection with it after you explain the life-death metaphor of being shaped and growing from external forces that are trying to shape you a certain way. Your pieces are pretty deep in concept, you know, but you're able to portray these concepts in such a meaningful and simple way that it's almost impossible not to grasp what you're trying to accomplish with your imagery here.
Wow.
So,
thank you. I have chills. Thank you so much.
I really appreciate you sharing this with us. Let's see some more of your stuff.
Awesome.
So this piece right here is obviously a portrait. You did extremely well with the face here. Thank you. Tell us some of the ideas you had behind this piece.
So this was actually the first oil painting I've ever done. So it was my first time, you know, mixing the paint together and getting used to the process. And so that was interesting on its own. A few hours earlier that day, I remember I was watching some videos on Renaissance art. And they were talking about yoke tempera, and then they started talking about oil paints, and I had a few oil paints. And I was like, and I know I've seen your work before, and I was like, oh, it's so cool. Like, I love the way that you're able to blend, and just the fullness of the vibrancy and the color. And I'm like, wow. So after watching, you know, I got so inspired. I was like, I want to do a piece of Mother Mary. So I looked at different references and everything to try to figure out how I'd want it to be, you know, composed, and this is what I came up with. I started working on it at 1 o'clock in the morning. I remember I couldn't sleep that night. It was like 2 weeks ago that I started this piece. I was really sick. I had some respiratory thing going on, so I couldn't lay down. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna paint. So this piece took me probably around 7 hours to do. That's amazing that you were able to complete this in 7 hours. Yes. And you were not feeling well when you did this, so this was somewhat of a healing process as well. It really was, because otherwise I couldn't breathe. I'd be laying down, I'd be like coughing. So like when I was doing this, I was focused on something. I had my jams on, you know. I was just like so immersed into the piece. It became a part of me. And it's like, you know, you're doing Mother Mary, so it's like, you know, that's healing in a sense because of like what she represents and like who she is. So, you know, I'm basically known as a portrait artist, so I love portraits, and the way you've captured her face, the shadows, the detailing of her nose and her lips, and with the sun behind her. Once again, your colors are very vibrant. This is the one piece I see where you laid the paint more or less flat without a lot of textures, which is interesting in itself. I'm just amazed by this. I'm really just trying to absorb it and take it all in. I'm really fascinated by you and your art, that you were able to complete this in such a short amount of time and have such an intricate piece in the finish. Joy, I really have enjoyed talking to you this evening, and I can't wait to see what else you're going to come out with. Thank you so much, Travis. Thank you so much for having me. And I mean, I'm honored that I could be here and, you know, be a part of this. I think it's amazing that you're doing this. Well, it's been my pleasure. This has been another episode of Electric City Television's Roundtable Discussions. I'm your host, Travis Prince, and our guest for today was Joy Zavada. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.